You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
Swiss watchmaking is an industry steeped in history and tradition, with names like Piaget, Patek Philippe, Rolex, Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin, and others. There's also a family-run Swiss luxury watchmaker that is somewhat of a secret to the world, but has made a remarkable rise to one of the darlings of independent watchmaking. That company is Moser Cie. This entrepreneurial brand has roots dating back to 1828, but current production that dates back only a decade when it was acquired in 2012 by the Meylan family, whose history in the watch industry goes back several generations. My guest today on The Luxury Item is Edouard Meylan, CEO of Moser Cie. Before starting as CEO of Moser in 2013, Edouard was involved in the watchmaking world from a young age, through his family and in leadership roles at high-end watch brands. At Moser, he has taken a clear and decisive stance in the watch industry with an original approach combining traditional haute horlogerie, provocative design, and disruptive marketing initiatives. Welcome to The Luxury Item, Edouard.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you for joining me and taking some time out. Moser and Company is a family-run entrepreneurial brand whose roots date back to 1828, but current production dates back a decade when your family company, MELB Holding, rescued it in 2012 after the previous owners kind of ran into some quality and financial issues. What do you and your family see in the Moser brand that you felt was worth giving it a second chance? Where was the potential?
There were many aspects that we actually that really resonated with us. I mean, we are a family I grew up in the watch industry. My father was in the industry, and our ancestors as well. So we're we're a family who likes tradition. We like high-end finishing, haute horlogerie. So when we came and discovered Moser, we saw this amazing manufacturer. Everything under one roof. At that time, about 70 people doing a lot of the elements that actually creates a beautiful watch, and it's quite rare in our industry nowadays, and even more so at that time. Then we saw the history, great history in the region of Schaffhausen, around the world, a beautiful museum, a family still involved, a very entrepreneurial spirit across the different era of the brand. And we saw the products. My predecessors, yes, they ran into quality issues, reliability issues, a lot of financial issues, but what they did extremely well was to create amazing products. And and that's not easy, to be honest. And I know that because it's my everyday job. But at that time, they had amazing products like the perpetual calendar. And we all said, well, a movement like that is probably one of the best in the market. Okay, it's not yet fully reliable, but who knows? Maybe we have enough experience to make it reliable and build something on top of it. So yeah, these were, I would say, the main things that really resonated to us.
And you hold a degree in engineering and an MBA from Wharton. And before joining Moser, you had said you already had a kind of a track record in the watch industry. When you took over as CEO of Moser in 2013, what was the core strategy you had in mind for revitalizing the Moser brand for more of a modern world and a digital audience?
To be honest, in 2013, I had no clue. I think the main focus at that point was save it. So I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in terms of positioning, in terms of identity, in terms of products. It was more like, how do we cut the bleeding? How do we get the base right? And then so that we can build on top of it. So the first months was really about re-engineering, increasing efficiencies, selling assets, trying to find the core that we wanted to keep and get rid of the rest. So that was the difficult part, I would say, emotionally. And then the more interesting or more fun part was really to discover what is the vision for this brand, what do we want to do, and as you said, we wanted to bring this modern touch. And when I look back at the presentations I did to the board and my partners at that time, it was already like trying to rejuvenate, bring energy, bring modernity to the brand, but I didn't know how. I remember symbolizing that with a fresh green apple, saying, I want Moser to be that fresh green apple, and then we tried things. We you said I had experience in the watch industry, not a lot, but a little bit by being in the sales side of the business in Asia for a few years, but also by creating a startup or a venture with some friends in 2008, which unfortunately failed. But it was very interesting as a learning process, and
right.
And I learned, to push the boundaries, be creative, manage cash, and those kind of things. So at that point it was about, when you don't have resources or financial resources, then you have to use all other kind of resources, and ours were leaning to creativity, and then we tried things, and many things worked to some extent.
And Moser has gained this reputation of being something of an industry, I'll call it a rebel with a cause, stirring up controversy with some stirring up controversy with some of your concepts and designs. You created the Swiss Alp watch, which was a subversive dig at the Apple Watch, the Swiss Mad watch, which was made from real Swiss cheese, intended to kind of stir debate about the whole Swiss made label, and the Swiss Icons watch, which parodied the incrementalism of much of Swiss watch design overall. While you keep expanding your range of traditional luxury timepieces, you're also making these kind of provocative, humorous, and often controversial timepieces, this offbeat strategy. Tell me what the thinking is there, and do you think it's sustainable?
As I said, I grew up in the traditional watchmaking, and there are certain values that are important to me and to us as a team and a family. And we wanted, in a way, to have a discussion about it. So when everybody was asking us about, what's the future of the traditional Swiss watchmaking, when everybody is now looking at connected watches, well, our reaction was to create the Swiss Alp watch and to talk about it and be part of the story and express our view on that. Mm-hmm. When you don't have marketing budget, the best way to I believe, to stand out and have a discussion with bigger brands or bigger entities is by using this kind of viral symbolism, provocation, with a touch of humor that belongs to us. It's kind of our way to do it, but there are probably many ways to do it. So I think the core of it was really for us to express an idea, express an opinion, or show something we're working on. If we look at the latest concepts we've done, like the Blacker Than Black, which is about smart materials, etc. So for us, it was really about expression. And when you say, some people said we were the Mavericks, or we were the rebels. Yes, in a way, but for me, it was more of an activist approach in really trying to communicate something. It was not just trying to be there in the spotlight for a buzz, to create a buzz. It was really about communicating something, communicating about our values, create this discussion. I think it became kind of a tradition. We had a lot of ideas, a lot of things we wanted to talk about, and we found this formula, which was, let's launch something crazy, a unique piece just before the big fair, like 2 or 3 days before, expose it during the fair. Everybody's going to talk about this subject. They will come and see us, because if I just launch another 3-hand watch, who cares? There's tons of them out there. So let's have something that is way beyond that really interests people. The press, because they want to have interesting subjects. There's the beautiful or crazy product that we can take pictures of, but also the customers. They go in those fairs not just to see like all the products they will anyway see in the stores a few weeks or months or years later. They want to see the incredible, and in a way, those kind of products were those incredible concepts that traditionally you see those kind of things in the car industry, which are those concept cars that you never see on the roads. You only see them in the fairs. Well, this is kind of a mix of those kind of things.
Is there any concern that these attention-getting buzz around some of these more satirical pieces and rebellious marketing tactics will dilute the bigger brand story?
For some people, yes. But at the same time, most of the people would probably have never heard of Moser. So for me, I see it as, if the people are interested enough, they will look at it as a small window into our world. They will understand the message behind, which is actually linked to the bigger picture, and they will discover the bigger picture. But yes, if it's somebody who goes on Instagram, sees the H. Moser post with a cheese watch, they're going to say, well, this is ugly and stupid. But if they go in there, read the story, go on our website and discover, why did we do that? We wanted to express our differences in terms of, most of those Swiss-made brands are just 50 and then 60% added value made in Switzerland. For us, it's 100%. The reason why we wanted to step away from the Swiss-made, and we made a statement about it. And those people, they are our biggest followers today. But yes, there are some people who thought we were like just clowns of the industry, but who cares? I mean, for me, I'm producing 2,000 watches a year. I probably wouldn't have been able to sell them as we do right now if we were not standing out and expressing our vision. People love and understand Moser. But if you stay and just say, we are 1800, we are a brand from 1828, made in Switzerland, very high-end watches, who gives? Who cares?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, there's 100 of them, and they're probably, better known than us because they have huge marketing budgets. So go and buy them. If you want something different, opinionated, with great craftsmanship, with amazing people behind, those amazing watchmakers from Schaffhausen, then you can be interested in Moser.
And you said you created about 2,000 watches a year. Do you plan on sticking with that number for a while?
As I said in the beginning, we're very integrated, and which is great because you control a lot of what you do, but it's a nightmare when you want to grow because it's not just by adding a watchmaker, then you're going to produce more watches. You need to grow the entire supply chain. And that starts for us with the hairsprings. So yeah, there's a lot of steps to where we need to scale up in order to scale up the brand. So we don't want to stay at 2,000. We want to grow slowly. I think it's important for a brand to expand, to grow, not only because it creates more dynamic in the market and also bring money so that you can invest in new project and innovation, etc. But also it's important for us to have power because when you're small, you are very very vulnerable towards the retailers, towards the big groups. They're all fighting for more space, for more margin, etc. So it's important for us to be a healthy, growing brand.
And what is the biggest market now for Moser?
US and Greater China are probably the biggest at the moment. US has grown tremendously in the last, say, 5 years. We've done a lot of good work, I think, there and getting the name out there, good products. Now we opened a subsidiary with good people that support us. We have a great network. And I think, it's a market where also the fact that suddenly the prices of Moser watches in the secondary market have jumped way above retail is we see in the US is a very important parameter when people decide to purchase watches. So it's probably why there was a strong acceleration there.
And how much of your business is brick and mortar?
90%.
You said in an interview that you're trying to make an emotional link with customers. And you said, we do that through transparency and honesty, but also by being provocative. So what type of customer, their mindset sort of embraces this Moser defiant, provocative brand positioning? It doesn't seem it's for everybody. It's a certain type of person, it sounds like.
For me, it's really like this kind of entrepreneurs, like very confident people. They're confident in themselves. They don't care about what people think, what people like. They don't have to have the same as everybody else. I mean, Moser watches, you don't even have the logo on it. So you better know what's in there and feel comfortable telling people why you bought a watch with no logo, no indexes, it's different, right? So it's interesting to see those characters. And a lot of people got to know each other through Moser. And yeah, it's not a watch for everybody. And we don't want to be a watch or a brand for everybody. Again, if we are too democratic, then there are bigger brands out there that people, if they want the same watch as everybody else, then go and buy those watches. We are creating pieces of art that kind of, push the boundaries of creativity in watchmaking while staying true to traditional watchmaking. And that's not for everybody, but those very, it doesn't mean you have to build your own company and be a successful entrepreneur, but it's more this mindset about, not really caring about what others think and really appreciating and being confident about, I buy this because I understand the intrinsic value, I like what's behind it, and I don't care if people don't understand it.
Thinking about Moser's cheeky spin on the iconic Apple Watch design, the younger generation who grew up telling the time from their phones have suddenly gotten into the habit of wearing a wristwatch. And now some of them have become, crypto millionaires, and they're excited to move into more prestigious mechanical timepieces. Why do you think millennials have all of a sudden have become luxury analog watch buyers?
I think it's a process. It's always been there. At some point, you start, I think you need to be part of a group, and then you need to get out of the group. And I think as people grow and get, the smartwatches have colonized the wrist of younger customers, and then as they grow, but they don't want to have the same watch as all the others. And that's why also Moser is very popular in that segment. I think that's what we offer. It's something different, unique, that is you. And this provocation and this entrepreneurial spirit is very millennial in a way. And we see, yes, more and more. And they, of course, they made for some of them a lot of money through crypto and the metaverse, etc. And they have a different way of thinking. But definitely a huge market and growing and growing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are you finding more younger adults are discovering Moser?
Definitely, I think, our communication, I mean, the way we treat social media, the way we engage customers, the content we create is definitely appealing to a younger generation, or younger crowd in comparison probably to more traditional brands. I think the average age of people since I took over of owners of Moser has probably dropped by about 20 years. So it's pretty interesting, because obviously this is the next generation, and there are more and more, and then we slowly talking about Generation Z as well. And when you the older people in the Generation Z and now have the means to buy watches as well, and they think also differently from the millennials. So I think there's also a lot of potential there.
How do you use social media to tell your story to these young collectors?
The way we try is really to think about it as a dialogue. It's really try to engage people in the discussion. I try to be as connected as possible with them. We're very active on traditional social media like Instagram, Facebook. We're not yet there with going into the TikTok, and even like in the metaverse and right. Virtual and versus digital. But we're working on it, and I think there's a lot of things we can do there. But for me, really the key is the human dimension. It's trying to create interesting content and have a discussion. It's not about just posting and showing, it's about talking and exchanging with those people.
The pandemic and the ensuing consequences from factory and store closures hit Swiss watch sales in 2020, forcing brands to boost their often tiny online business and generally rethink their digital activities. How did it impact your business?
For years, we were thinking, should we sell online? Is it, are people ready to buy Moser watches? Our average price, we start with $13,000, but the average is around 40. So how much are we ready to spend online? We had no clue, and we didn't, pay for market studies, etc. So I think it was March 13 or March 16 in Switzerland, 2020, when everything got closed. I think 95% of our doors were closed around the world. And I talked to my team and said, well, now we have no choice. Let's go for it. So April 2nd, we opened our online platform. I think 2 days later, we sold the first tourbillon. I think we started with like a close to $80,000 watch, sold to a gentleman in the US who had never had a Moser watch on his wrist. And then boom, it started. Now we have to limit to 10% of our production, but we could sell way more than that. But it's completely changed our business model. It revolutionized the way we now think. It obviously makes the brand much more powerful towards our retailers. And I make always the comparison with a brand like Richard Mille. When I was very close to Richard Mille, we worked together many years ago. He was telling me how when he started in the early 2000, they had a lot of, he started selling direct. He had to invest in a lot of boutiques, which is, requires a lot of CapEx and fixed costs, etc. Here, it's much easier for us. You have access to the customers, you have access to data. It's so much easier than that time. I think and I think that's why independent brands are now surging and becoming more and more important in our industries, because it's kind of easier than it was probably for the generation before us. Now we need to still take the right strategic decisions, but I think we are at the beginning of the golden age for independent brands.
After 2 years of the pandemic-related disruption, the luxury watch world recently descended on Geneva to confer on the latest horological trends and most exciting timepieces at the annual Watches and Wonders trade show. Did it feel like a school reunion seeing your watchmaking industry colleagues again in person?
Yes, it was really like, people, nobody was wearing masks. I think everybody got the COVID. Everybody's like hugging, and they were like, this amazing energy, at least in the beginning, until people started being sick. I had it before, so it was quite easy for me, but no, definitely a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. for me, I said really, we can do a lot digitally. We can connect with people around the world. We can train hundreds of people in one day, which requires usually weeks. But building relationship, maintaining relationship, you cannot do that online. And I think for 2 years without seeing each other is okay if you have been traveling for years and build those relationships over time, but eventually you have to meet again.
You're all for the physical trade shows.
I think we need a good mix. I think we need to be more pragmatic than before. It used to be like those big, very fancy, super expensive shows where you just, everybody trying to show its muscles and who is the biggest and big parties, etc. I don't think you need that. I think, again, it's about meeting people, having good interactions, think strategically, build relationships. And for that, you don't need to be spending millions on champagne and crazy parties.
One of the timepieces you presented at Watches and Wonders was the Streamliner Chronograph in a blacker than black version, as it's been dubbed. The entire watch is covered with the blackest substance ever produced artificially, from its dial to its case, right down to its integrated bracelet. How did the idea for the blacker than black Streamliner come about?
It's part of the series of those crazy concepts you were talking about. We started with the Swiss Alp watch. We had the Swiss Mad watch, the Swiss Icons watch, the Moser Nature watch. We did a collaboration with MBNF, which was about collaboration. That was the topic that was supposed to be in 2020. 2021, there was no shows. But in 2022, for us, it was about expressing a little bit the future of innovation in our industry. I think for years, we've seen a lot of watches in steel, in gold, in titanium, and maybe carbon if you got a little bit innovative. But I think there's a lot coming now with smart materials and functional materials, and we wanted to express that. We're working on different projects there. And again, those concepts are for us a way to express a little bit the future, show something a little bit crazy for people who actually pay quite a lot of money to go to those shows and want something interesting to see, and not just the next new 3 hands watch from the big brand. So the idea there was really to express that and show something that they would probably never see again.
And your timepieces are known for its distinctive designs, and many executives will see a design, approve it, or give notes, and that's it. How early are you personally involved in the design process?
Oh, right at the beginning. It's important we have a very small core team discussing design, and that includes Bertrand, my brother, the head of production, Maurizio, and the head of sales, Nicholas, and myself. In the beginning, I was pretty much doing a lot myself because I think it's important to define the codes, both what I call the functional design codes and the aesthetical design codes. And once we all agreed on those, we started really working well together. And I think everybody brings ideas about what we need, how to complement. We have a very, if I can say it this way, but very matrix approach where, we have 4 collections, our 4 pillars, which are the Endeavor, Pioneer, Heritage, and Streamliner. And we have different families of movements. And then it's a lot about combining and thinking what is the next movement we need to expand, depending on, do we want to continue to show our skills in horologery by creating something really in the upper end, or do we need to bring something more in the entry level that would still be very Moser and functional, etc. So we have those kind of discussions, and then the last discussions are usually about materials and colors.
In 2019, you released the Moser Nature watch, made up entirely of Swiss plants, symbolizing really the brand's commitment to its green operations and using fair trade materials. Well, that's really a noble symbol of your commitment to the environment sustainability. What real actions is Moser doing to back that up?
It was not only about the green aspects, really about corporate social responsibility, and that incorporates a lot of things. It's about how do you check where the money is coming from? How do you source your material? How do you treat your employees? How do you manage data and all those things? So for us, it was really about talking about corporate social responsibility. Yes, we use fair trade gold. Yes, and we pay more for that. Yes, we try to reduce the impact that we have through the way we travel, what kind of cars we use, the kind of water we drink at the manufacturer, how we compensate our carbon footprint, what kind of foundations do we support, like Room to Read, with which we work most. What kind of gift do we give to our customers or not give to our customers or guests? all those kind of things. And it started with our RJC certification, which is the Jewelry Council. It's kind of a label for corporate social responsibility in our industry. And this is a 2 years process to get certified, and probably the smaller brand certified. And it looks really in all your processes and how you can improve and be better. So yes, quite a lot of things that we do in the background, and not just creating a recycled plastic bracelet.
Demand for high-end watches exploded during the COVID-19 pandemic, but the big four watch brands have been holding firm on the limited production runs, sending demand for the hottest watches far outstripping supply. And waiting lists have gotten longer, and prices on the secondhand market are skyrocketing. Has the scarcity of these heavy hitters pushed new collectors to discover indie brands like Moser for the first time?
As much as a lot of people don't want to admit, I think the people were looking for the next thing. But not only that, I think I believe our products are amazing. And I think if people look in the details, they see there's way more value in those kind of products, small quantities, amazing craftsmanship. We probably don't make the same margin as those big brands, but because we invest a lot in the products and we don't have the scale. But it's like art. I think we are the artists of this industry, and I think more and more people discover that, and they realize that there's a lot of potential in discovering those watches. I think a lot of people have also already those kind of difficult to get watches, because all those big collectors eventually they get them. I think there was a bit of a social media. There is a bit of a social media effect where everybody wants to say the same watches, but a lot of people still have them, and in the end they want the next one. What is the next thing? And I think that drove to the FP Journe, the MB&F, or the Moser of this world.
The stellar reputation enjoyed by Swiss watchmakers directly translates to a premium and a willingness by consumers to pay more for those products as a result of the coveted geographical indication. You've been very outspoken about the requirements to earn the Swiss-made label. Current legislation is at least 60% of the value of the components within a quote-unquote Swiss-made watch will have to be of Swiss origin in order to be considered eligible. That means the other parts can come from China or some other countries. You obviously want higher than 60%. As a smaller independent Swiss brand, you're essentially penalized because you genuinely create just about everything in-house for whom costs are higher.
When it says 60% of the value, it's even possible, for example, some brands do that. You have the parts made in China or wherever, brought to Switzerland, finished in Switzerland, and just because the salaries are so high for skilled people, you just have somebody touch those parts, it's already enough to get to those 60%. I think one of the new rules that was established back then, I think it's 2017, is about also the origin of the development of the movements. For example, they have to be developed in Switzerland, but most of those movements that those brands are using date back from the 70s, so they're already amortized and everything. But that's true. But for us, yes, we are 100%, and I think today you can create amazing watches and still be competitive while being 100% Swiss. It's always a question about trying to maximize profit, which luckily when you're not traded company and just a family business, but sufficiently profitable to live, then you don't have to maximize this, and therefore your priority is more in making amazing products and not maximize profit.
How do your fellow Swiss brands feel? Are there some that are on the same boat as you that would love to see much higher?
I think most of the independents are similar, and probably a few of those very, very big, the Patek of these worlds, they're probably similar to us. They think similarly because 100% of what they do is Swiss made. And we see it. Some of the suppliers come to us and they say, some of the brands, it's like us, it has to be made and 100% in Swiss, and they need to certify it. But they have other clients, they said, I buy from you, I don't care where you produce. So obviously, just make sure you give me the best price. And a lot of those suppliers also source from China. So it really depends on the brand. But to be honest, I think independents plus the very big established brands are not cheating the system. Or it's not cheating. It's, I would say, playing with the naivety or the lack of knowledge of the collectors.
There's still a sense of that the pre-owned and particularly gray markets watch sale are viewed in Switzerland as a seedy byproduct rather than a welcome opportunity to grow the overall industry. What are your thoughts?
I think that's wrong. I think when it is a big market and it's a growing market, and I do believe that brands have a responsibility in creating and making sure that we protect or we maintain the value of what we're selling, and we provide the right level of service, and giving a certain liquidity in the market for customers who bought your watch today but might want to sell it tomorrow for whatever the reason is part of our responsibility. So I don't understand why certain brands try to fight the secondary market. I believe we need to work with them, and which we do. We play with the pure players, and in the sense that we provide them a lot of information when they need, and if they need a service, we will be there to help them. It's a market. If you try to fight it, it's just too big for you. I think it's better to try to make the best out of it by providing the service. At the end of the day, it's for the best for the end customer. Of course, the risk is manipulation, but at our scale, it's very difficult to influence anything. But I can imagine that some big brands can, if they want, they could manipulate the market by boosting the prices, in ways or others. But that's a different story.
And it's clear that the interest in watches has reached an all-time high. As it prices, do you think we're in a bubble right now?
I don't know. I hope not, to be honest.
I knew you were going to answer that. Right.
I hope not. No, but that we are we might be very high in the cycle. There's always cycles. But look at art. Art you could think there's been bubbles in art. I think watches are becoming, the people start to think about watches like they think of art or collector's cars. You don't say it's a secondary, it's a secondhand Ferrari. It's a Ferrari from '64. That's the value is even higher. But in watches for many years, it was a secondary. So people were thinking that has less value. But I think that is changing. And it changed in art, and it changed in art a long time ago. You don't treat, it's not a secondhand Picasso, it's a Picasso, right? So I think, and in cars it changed after art, and I think it's changing in watches. So I don't think there's going to be the way back. That the prices might go down a little bit, that we have hit a top at some point. Yes, for sure. But that it's not that goes back up later, for sure as well. I think what we produce is very limited. The demand is increasing. The amount of wealth is there. Maybe there's going to be a crash in the financial world or the economical world, which has a negative impact on the sales of watches for sure. But we had the quartz crisis, we had many others, and I think we will recover in that case much more quickly. Now, are we in a bubble? Frankly, I have no idea. But I think I still believe that the prices will go higher. If it's not in the next few months, it's going to be in a few years from now.
While you do occasionally poke fun at the Swiss watchmaking industry, when you look around, what other watchmakers do you admire right now?
For most, I like my peers among the independents. I like the guys like Jouer and what they do there. The Akrivia, Recepi. I like the design of the Bethune. I think my world is really about independent, and that's where we collaborate. We help each other. There's really it's interesting. I see independence as being kind of a category, a brand on its own. It's becoming like this. We're not competing anymore with each other because anyway, we all sold out. So it's more about this category competing more with the bigger brands. So yeah, this is the inspiration, trying to learn from each other and helping each other.
You were talking about the metaverse before. Given its century-old craft, the watch industry is notoriously resistant to change and slow to react to outside developments. However, we're already seeing the watch industry experimenting with authentication, NFTs, blockchain technology, and the metaverse. How has Moser heralded the arrival of Web3?
We look at it and we learn and we study and we work on projects. I think with Web3, I think the risk is like with Web2 is to be too early and then damage your brand by having a crash. We were talking about value. I think there's a lot of value right now, and maybe the bubble might be in Web3 at the moment. So we have to be careful not to be too early and be too opportunistic. I see a lot of the initiatives in the watch industry to be at the moment. I would put aside the certification aspect, which I think is really interesting. But I think there's a lot of things that I made, like creating a digital copy of a watch. I think for me is kind of trying to surf the wave of speculation around NFTs, and I think that's very NFT, especially in art. I think it's very opportunistic, but I think there's many ways that we can work with it, and we're definitely working on it and trying to find something that adds value to the customer, that really brings something useful, and not just trying to surf the wave.
So my final question, Edouard, is the luxury item question, which I ask all my guests. So if you were stranded on a deserted island and you could only have one luxury item with you, what would that luxury item be? It can't be any form of air transportation, water transportation, or anything that requires mobile service. What would that one luxury item you would like to have with you?
It has to be luxury, right? It cannot be.
That's the name of the show.
It could be. I think being there would be luxury, because time is luxury, and right now, as we all know, it's difficult to have a lot of time for ourselves. So being on that island alone, maybe taking my family with me, that would be quite luxury. So spending time on that island, and I have young kids that are growing way too fast. So I think we always said with my wife is, it's been 10 years of a lot of traveling. Yes, a little bit less the last 2 years, but being away from the family and missing on those amazing times, and looking back, that's definitely, as much as I love the success we're having with Moser, and I'm super proud about it, and I think they are proud as well, I think spending time with them and having not getting messages and and phone calls and tackling issues would be the biggest luxury.
That's a great answer. Edouard Meylan, CEO and owner of H. Moser & Company. Thank you so much for joining me on the luxury item.
My pleasure. Great question. Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.